Welcome back to the channel. Today, you are going to test your real English level from a 1 to C2. This is not a grammar test. This is not a school exam. And you do not need to write anything down. All you need to do is listen. In this video, you will hear 6 different English stories. Each story is written for one English level. A. 1. Beginner. A 2. Elementary. A 2. B. 1. Intermediate. B. 2. Upper intermediate. C1. Advanced. C2. Expert. The rules are very simple. Listen carefully to each story. If the story feels easy, continue to the next level. If the story feels difficult, confusing, or too fast for you, that level may be close to your current English level. Do not worry if you do not understand every single word. That is normal. Even native speakers sometimes hear new words. The most important question is this. Can you understand the main idea? Can you follow the story? Can you understand what the speaker is feeling, doing, or thinking? If yes, you are doing well. So find a quiet place. Put on your headphones if you have them. Relax your shoulders. Take a deep breath, and let's begin your English level test. At A1 level, English is very simple. The sentences are short. The words are common. The ideas are easy to follow. You will hear simple information about name, age, home, family, daily routine, food, work, and free time. If you can understand this story easily, your English is at least a 1. Let's start. My name is Lily. I am 20 years old. I live in a small town with my family. My family is small. I live with my father, my mother, and my younger sister. My sister is 10 years old. Her name is Mia. She is funny and kind. We live in a small house. Our house is not big, but it is clean and warm. There are 2 bedrooms, 1 kitchen, 1 bathroom, and 1 living room. In the living room, there is a sofa, a small table, and a television. My family watches TV together in the evening. I like our house very much. In the morning, I wake up at 7 o'clock. I open my eyes. I sit on my bed. Then I get up. I wash my face and brush my teeth. After that, I go to the kitchen. My mother makes breakfast. Sometimes we eat bread and eggs. Sometimes we eat rice. I drink tea in the morning. My father drinks coffee. My sister drinks milk. After breakfast, I go to work. I work in a small flower shop. The shop is near my house. I walk to work every day. It takes about 10 minutes. The street is quiet in the morning. I see trees, cars, and people. Some people walk their dogs. Some people ride bicycles. When I arrive at the flower shop, I open the door. I turn on the lights. I put water in the flower pots. The flowers are beautiful. There are red roses, white lilies, yellow sunflowers, and pink flowers. I like the smell of flowers. It makes me happy. In the shop, I help customers. Some customers buy flowers for birthdays. Some customers buy flowers for their mothers. Some customers buy flowers for weddings. I say, "Good morning. How can I help you?" I smile. I like talking to people. At 12 o'clock, I eat lunch. I usually bring food from home. I eat rice, chicken, and vegetables. Sometimes I eat noodles. After lunch, I work again. In the afternoon, more customers come to the shop. I clean the tables. I answer the phone. I help my boss. My boss is very nice. Her name is Mrs. Green. She teaches me many things about flowers. At 5 o'clock, I finish work. I say goodbye to my boss. Then I walk home. When I get home, I am tired, but I feel good. I help my mother cook dinner. My sister does her homework at the table. My father comes home at 6 o'clock. We eat dinner together. We talk about our day. Sometimes we laugh. After dinner, I wash the dishes. Then I take a shower. In the evening, I sometimes watch TV. Sometimes I listen to music. Sometimes I read a very easy English book. I want to learn English because I want to travel one day. I want to visit many countries. I want to meet new people. At 10 o'clock, I go to bed. Before I sleep, I think about my day. My life is simple. I have my family. I have my work. I have my dreams. I am happy. If you understood this story easily, congratulations. Your English is at least A1. You can understand simple sentences about daily life, family, work, food, and routines. Now let's move to A2. At A2 level, English becomes a little richer. The sentences are longer. You will hear more connected ideas. You will hear about routines, plans, feelings, free time, and small problems. If you can understand this story without much difficulty, your English is at least A2. Let's continue. My name is Thomas, and I live in a small apartment near the city center. My apartment is not very large, but it is comfortable enough for me. There is one bedroom, a kitchen, a bathroom, and a living room. The living room has a big window. From the window, I can see a small park across the street. In the morning, many people walk through the park. Some people go jogging. Some people sit on benches and drink coffee. Sometimes children play there after school. I like living near the park because it makes the city feel less noisy. Every morning, I wake up at 6:30. I do not like getting up early, but I have to start work at 8 o'clock. First, I turn off my alarm. Then, I lie in bed for 5 more minutes. After that, I get up, take a shower, and get dressed. I usually wear a white shirt and black trousers because I work in a bank. For breakfast, I usually eat toast and fruit. I also drink a cup of coffee. I cannot start my day without coffee. At 7:30, I leave my apartment. If the weather is nice, I walk to work. It takes about 20 minutes. If it is raining, I take the bus. The bus stop is next to my building. The bank is not very big. I work with 8 other people. My job is to help customers. Some customers want to open a new account. Some want to ask about money. Some need help with their bank cards. Most customers are friendly, but sometimes people are impatient. When someone is angry, I try to stay polite and calm. I say, I understand. Let me check that for you. I think being calm is very important in my job. At lunchtime, I usually eat with my friend David. He works in the same bank. We go to a small restaurant near the office. The food is cheap and good. I often order rice with chicken or pasta with tomato sauce. David always orders the same thing, fish and salad. He says it is healthy. I say it is boring. We laugh about this almost every day. After lunch, we go back to work. The afternoon is usually busier than the morning. Many people come to the bank after lunch. Sometimes I feel tired, but I try to smile. At 5 o'clock, I finish work. On Mondays and Wednesdays, I go to the gym after work. I exercise for 1 hour. I run, lift weights, and listen to music on my phone. Exercise helps me feel relaxed. On other days, I go home and cook dinner. I am not a great cook, but I can make simple food. I can cook soup, noodles, eggs, and rice. Sometimes I call my mother and ask her how to cook something. She laughs and says, "You are 28 years old. You should know this already." But she always helps me. On weekends, my routine is different. I do not wake up early. I sleep until 9 or 10 o'clock. On Saturday, I often meet my friends. We go to a cafe, watch a movie, or walk around the city. On Sunday, I clean my apartment. I wash my clothes. I buy food for the week. In the evening, I like to study English. I watch short English videos online. I also write 5 new words in my notebook every day. I want to improve my English because I would like to work in another country in the future. Maybe I will move to Canada or Australia. I am not sure yet. It is only a dream now, but I believe that learning a little every day is better than doing nothing. If you understood this story well, your English is at least A2. You can understand simple, connected sentences about daily routines, work, free time, plans, and personal goals. Now, let's move to B1. At B1 level, English becomes more natural. The story is longer. You will hear more details, reasons, problems, opinions, and personal experiences. You do not need to understand every word, but you should be able to follow the main story and understand the message. If you can do that, your English is at least B1. Let's begin. My name is Rachel, and I work as a receptionist at a small hotel near the sea. I have worked there for almost 4 years. At first, I only wanted a temporary job. I thought I would work there for a few months, save some money, and then look for something else. But little by little, I started to enjoy the work. Now I feel that the hotel has become an important part of my life. The hotel is not very large. It has 20 rooms, a small restaurant, and a garden where guests can sit in the evening. During the summer, the hotel is very busy. Tourists come from different cities and different countries. Some people stay for one night. Others stay for a week or more. My job is to welcome guests, check their bookings, answer questions, and help solve problems. A normal day starts at 7:30 in the morning. When I arrive, I check the computer. I look at the list of people who are leaving and the list of people who are arriving. Then I talk to the cleaning team and tell them which rooms need to be ready first. Sometimes everything goes smoothly, but in a hotel, there is always something unexpected. A guest loses a key. A shower stops working. Someone arrives too early. Someone complains that the room is too cold, too hot, too small, or too noisy. At the beginning, these problems made me very nervous. I was afraid of saying the wrong thing. I was afraid guests would become angry. But over time, I learned that most problems can be solved if you listen carefully and speak politely. One experience taught me this lesson very clearly. Last summer, an older couple arrived at the hotel late in the evening. They looked tired and worried. They had driven for 6 hours, and it had rained heavily on the road. When I checked their booking, I saw a problem. They had booked a room for the wrong date. Their reservation was for the following week, not that night. Unfortunately, the hotel was almost full. At first, the man became upset. He said, "We booked online. We paid already. We need a room tonight." 5 on why. I understood why he was worried. They were tired, it was late, and they did not know the area. I told them I would do my best to help. I checked the computer again. Then I called two nearby hotels, but they were also full. Finally, I remembered that one room in our hotel was not usually used because it was small and had no sea view. It was clean, quiet, and comfortable, but we normally kept it for emergencies. I spoke to my manager, and she agreed to use that room for the couple. I also gave them tea and helped carry their bags upstairs. The next morning, they came to the desk and thanked me. The woman said, "You made a difficult evening much easier." That sentence stayed in my mind. It reminded me that my job is not only about computers, keys, and bookings. It is about people. People come to hotels for many reasons. Some are on holiday. Some are traveling for work. Some are visiting family. Some are celebrating something special. And some are tired, stressed, or lonely. A good receptionist needs more than good English. You need patience. You need kindness. You need the ability to stay calm when other people are not calm. Outside of work, I study English because I want to communicate better with international guests. Every evening, I spend about 30 minutes learning new words. I write useful phrases in a notebook. For example, "How can I help you? Let me check that for you. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Would you like me to call a taxi?" These phrases are simple, but they are very useful. I also watch travel videos in English. At first, I understood only a little, but now I can follow most of the video if the speaker is not too fast. This makes me feel proud. Learning English has not been easy for me. Sometimes I feel frustrated. Sometimes I forget words that I learned the day before. Sometimes I understand English when I read it, but not when I hear it. But I try not to give up. I believe language learning is like walking up a hill. Some days you move quickly. Some days you move slowly. Some days you feel tired and stop for a moment. But if you keep going, you will reach a higher place. My dream is to become a hotel manager one day. I know I still have a lot to learn. I need better English. I need more confidence. I need more experience. But I am not the same person I was 4 years ago. I used to be shy. Now, I can speak to strangers every day. I used to panic when there was a problem. Now, I breathe, listen, and look for a solution. My job has taught me that confidence does not arrive suddenly. You build it slowly, one small experience at a time. If you understood this story, your English is at least B1. You can follow a longer story about work, problems, feelings, learning, and personal growth. Now, get ready for B2. At B2 level, English becomes more detailed and expressive. The speaker can explain experiences clearly, compare ideas, describe challenges, and reflect on life decisions. You will hear longer sentences, more natural expressions, and deeper thoughts. If you understand this story comfortably, your English is at least B2. Let's continue. My name is Michael, and for many years I worked in a large company as a marketing assistant. It was the kind of job many people would call safe. I had a regular salary, a clean office, friendly colleagues, and a clear schedule. Every morning, I arrived at 9. I answered emails, joined meetings, prepared reports, and helped create advertisements for different products. There was nothing terrible about the job. In fact, many parts of it were fine. My manager was fair. My team was supportive. The company gave me health insurance and paid holidays. From the outside, my life looked stable, but inside, I felt restless. The problem was difficult to explain. I was not unhappy every day. I was not treated badly. I was not failing. But I had a quiet feeling that I was living someone else's version of success. Every day looked almost the same desk, the same computer, the same conversations about sales, numbers, and deadlines. At first, I told myself that this was normal. Most adults work because they have to work. Not everyone can love their job. But the feeling did not disappear. In the evenings, after work, I started spending more and more time taking photos. I walked around the city with my camera. I photographed old buildings, street markets, people waiting for buses, children playing football, and sunlight falling across empty roads. Photography made me notice the world again. When I was taking pictures, I forgot about office stress. I felt awake. I felt curious. I felt like myself. At first, photography was only a hobby. I posted some photos online, and a few people liked them. Then, a friend asked me to take pictures at her birthday party. Another friend asked me to take photos for his small restaurant. Slowly, people began to contact me. They asked if I could photograph events, products, families, or business profiles. I said yes, even when I was nervous. During the week, I worked in the office. On weekends, I took photos. For a while, I lived two lives. From Monday to Friday, I was an employee. On Saturday and Sunday, I was a photographer. It was exciting, but also exhausting. I had very little free time. Sometimes I edited photos until 2 in the morning. Sometimes I went to work on Monday feeling like I had not rested at all. But, despite the tiredness, I felt more alive than before. After about a year, I began to ask myself a difficult question. Could I leave my office job and become a full-time photographer? The idea was both exciting and terrifying. A stable job gives you security. You know how much money you will earn each month. You know when you will work. You know what people expect from you. Freelance work is different. Some months are busy. Some months are quiet. Some clients are wonderful. Others are difficult. You have to find work, do the work, send invoices, answer messages, manage your time, and keep improving your skills. You are not only the artist, you are also the business. For months, I could not decide. I made lists of advantages and disadvantages. I talked to friends. I watched videos about freelancing. I saved as much money as possible. Finally, I decided to try. I told myself I would give photography 1 full year. If it failed, I could look for another job. My last day at the company was emotional. My colleagues brought cake. They wished me luck. Some people said they admired my courage. Others looked worried, as if I were jumping from a safe boat into unknown water. To be honest, that is exactly how it felt. The first months were hard, much harder than I expected. I had some clients, but not enough. I spent hours writing messages to businesses, creating a website, editing my portfolio, and posting my work online. Some people replied, most did not. Sometimes a client loved my work but wanted to pay very little. Sometimes someone canceled at the last minute. Sometimes I wondered if I had made a huge mistake. There were nights when I looked at my bank account and felt sick with worry, but I kept going. I improved my website. I learned about lighting. I studied editing techniques. I asked previous clients for reviews. I contacted small brands and offered professional photos for their products. Little by little, things began to change. A restaurant recommended me to another restaurant. A family shared my photos with their friends. A local magazine used one of my pictures and credited my name. That small moment gave me more confidence than I expected. Now, 3 years later, I work as a full-time photographer. My life is not easier than before. In many ways, it is more complicated. I work irregular hours. I answer messages in the evening. I carry heavy equipment. I spend long hours editing photos alone. I have to think about taxes, contracts, marketing, and customer expectations. But I feel connected to my work in a way I never did before. Photography has taught me to pay attention. A good photo is not only about the camera, it is about seeing. It is about noticing emotion, light, timing, and small details that others might miss. The same is true in life. We often think we need a dramatic change to feel alive. But sometimes We simply need to pay closer attention to what already matters. I do not believe everyone should leave their job and follow a dream. That is not realistic for everyone. Responsibilities are real. Money matters. Family matters. Security matters. But I do believe we should listen carefully to the quiet voice inside us. The voice that says, there is something more honest for you. Sometimes that voice asks for a big change. Sometimes it asks only for a small one. A new hobby, a new skill, a different routine, a little more courage. Looking back, I am proud that I took the risk. Not because everything became perfect. It did not. But because I stopped ignoring myself, I learned that a meaningful life is not always the most comfortable life. Sometimes it is the life where your effort feels connected to your heart. If you understood this story easily, your English is at least B2. You can understand detailed personal experiences, career changes, emotional conflict, and reflective ideas. Now, let's move to C1. At C1 level, English becomes much more natural, flexible, and expressive. You will hear abstract ideas, complex sentences, emotional depth, and subtle connections between thoughts. The language may not be extremely difficult word by word, but the ideas are more layered. If this story feels clear and natural to you, your English is around C1 or higher. Let's begin. My name is Julia, and I have worked as a teacher for nearly 15 years. When people ask me what I teach, they usually expect a simple answer: English, history, science, mathematics. But after so many years in the classroom, I have come to believe that teachers do not only teach subjects, we teach confidence. We teach patience. We teach young people how to keep going when something feels difficult. Of course, the subject matters. Students need vocabulary, grammar, facts, methods, and practice. But knowledge alone is not enough. A student can memorize 100 rules and still be afraid to speak. A student can understand a lesson perfectly and still believe they are not smart. That is why teaching is far more human than many people imagine. When I first became a teacher, I spent most of my energy preparing perfect lessons. I wanted every activity to be clear. I wanted every explanation to be impressive. I wanted students to think I was organized, intelligent, and in control. In other words, I wanted to be a good teacher. But I misunderstood what that meant. I thought a good teacher was someone who always knew what to say, someone who could control every moment in the room, someone who never looked uncertain. Experience has taught me something different. A good teacher is not someone who performs perfection. A good teacher is someone who creates a space where learning feels possible. That means students must feel safe enough to make mistakes. They must feel respected even when they are confused. They must believe that difficulty is not a sign of failure, but part of the process. I learned this lesson from a student named Daniel. He was quiet, serious, and almost invisible in class. He always sat near the back. He completed written exercises carefully, but he never raised his hand. Whenever I asked him a question, he looked down at his notebook. At first, I thought he simply did not want to participate. Then, one day, After class, I found a short note on my desk. It said, "I know the answers sometimes, but I am afraid people will laugh at my accent." That sentence stayed with me. It reminded me that silence in the classroom does not always mean laziness. Sometimes silence is fear. Sometimes it is shame. Sometimes it is the result of past experiences we know nothing about. After that, I changed the way I taught. I stopped pushing Daniel to speak in front of everyone. Instead, I gave him smaller chances. First, he read one sentence quietly to me after class. Then, he practiced with one partner. Later, he answered simple questions in a small group. Months passed. The progress was slow. But one afternoon, during a class discussion, Daniel raised his hand. His voice shook a little when he spoke. The sentence was not perfect. There were grammar mistakes. But the room became very quiet, and everyone listened. When he finished, I smiled and said, "Thank you. That was a thoughtful answer." I still remember the expression on his face. It was not pride exactly. It was relief, as if he had discovered that the thing he feared most did not destroy him. That moment changed not only him, but also me. It taught me that education is not a race toward perfection. It is a long conversation between effort and trust. In my classroom now, I tell students that mistakes are evidence of movement. If you make a mistake, it means you tried to build a sentence. If you forget a word, it means you reached for one. If your pronunciation is not perfect, it means your mouth is learning a new rhythm. These are not failures. They are signs of growth. One of the greatest challenges in language learning is emotional, not intellectual. Many students do not fail because English is impossible. They stop because they feel embarrassed. They compare themselves to others. They believe they are too old, too slow, or too far behind. But language does not grow through shame. It grows through repeated contact, listening again, trying again, speaking badly until you speak better, reading slowly until your eyes become familiar with the patterns, writing simple sentences until complex ones begin to appear naturally. I often compare language learning to planting a garden. You cannot pull a plant from the soil and force it to grow faster. You give it light. You give it water. You give it time. Some days, nothing seems to happen. But underground, something is changing. Roots are forming. Strength is developing. Then, one day, almost suddenly, you notice growth. A sentence comes more easily. A video feels clearer. A conversation lasts longer. You understand a joke. You express an idea that once felt impossible. These moments may seem small, but they are deeply powerful. They prove that learning is happening even when progress feels invisible. Teaching has also taught me humility. No two students learn in exactly the same way. Some students love grammar. They want rules, charts, and explanations. Others learn through stories, music, conversation, or repetition. Some need silence before they speak. Others need to speak before they understand. As a teacher, I cannot force everyone into one path. I can only offer different doors, and help students find the one they are ready to open. Outside the classroom, I have learned to see education everywhere. I learn from books, of course, but I also learn from conversations, from mistakes, from difficult days, and from people who see the world differently than I do. The older I get, the less I believe that learning ends at a particular age. School ends. Learning does not. In fact, some of the most important lessons arrive long after we think we should already know everything. Patience, resilience, forgiveness, the courage to begin again. These lessons do not come with certificates, but they shape us more deeply than many formal achievements. If there is one message I want every learner to remember, it is this: your level is not your identity. A 1 is not a weakness. B, 1 is not a limit. C, 2 is not a finish line. A level is only a map. It tells you where you are today. It does not decide where you can go tomorrow. The real question is not, am I good enough? The real question is, am I willing to continue? Because fluency is built by people who continue. Not perfectly, not every day with motivation, not without fear, but again and again, in small, ordinary, determined ways. If this story felt natural and clear to you, your English is at least C1. You can understand abstract reflection, emotional meaning, complex ideas, and natural transitions. Now let's move to the final level, C2. At C2 level, English becomes effortless, elegant, and deeply nuanced. You will hear advanced vocabulary, subtle emotional meaning, philosophical reflection, and complex rhythm. The difficulty is not only in the words, it is in the depth of the ideas and the way they connect. If you understand this story easily, your English is near native level. Let's begin. My name is Eleanor, and lately I have found myself thinking about the quiet distance between the life we plan and the life we actually live. When we are young, we often imagine life as a straight road. We picture ourselves moving forward with purpose, collecting achievements, becoming more certain, more successful, more complete. We believe that one day, after enough effort, we will arrive at a version of ourselves that no longer feels unfinished. But life, of course, rarely moves in straight lines. It bends, it pauses, it interrupts us. It gives us what we did not ask for, and takes away things we thought we could not live without. And somewhere along the way, we begin to understand that becoming ourselves is not a single destination. It is a series of quiet adjustments, a slow conversation between who we hope to be and who life has asked us to become. For many years, I measured my life by visible progress. I wanted proof that I was moving forward. A better job, a nicer apartment, a fuller calendar, more recognition, more certainty. I was not greedy, exactly. I simply believed what many of us are taught to believe, that a meaningful life must be visibly impressive. So I worked hard. I said yes to opportunities. I filled my days with responsibilities. I became reliable, efficient, and admired. People praised my discipline. They called me ambitious. They said I was building a good life, and in many ways, I was. But there was a strange emptiness beneath all that movement. Not sadness exactly, not even unhappiness, something quieter. A sense that I was becoming very good at maintaining a life I had not fully chosen. The realization did not come dramatically. There was no crisis, no sudden collapse, no single moment where everything changed. It arrived slowly, almost politely. In the small exhaustion I felt before opening my laptop, in the way I stopped noticing the seasons, in the fact that I could answer everyone's messages, but no longer knew what I wanted to say to myself. One evening, after a particularly ordinary day, I came home, put my keys on the table, and stood in the hallway without turning on the light. The apartment was silent. Outside, traffic moved steadily through the rain. For no clear reason, I began to cry. Not loudly, not desperately, just quietly, as if some part of me had been waiting for permission to admit that I was tired. That moment frightened me, because nothing was obviously wrong. And perhaps that is why it mattered. It is easier to explain pain when something has broken. It is harder to explain the ache of a life that functions perfectly but no longer feels alive. Over time, I began to make changes. Small ones at first. I stopped saying yes automatically. I left empty spaces in my calendar. I walked without listening to anything. I cooked slowly. I wrote in the morning before checking my phone. I allowed silence back into my life, though at first it felt uncomfortable. Silence has a way of revealing what noise helps us avoid. In silence, you hear the questions you have postponed. What am I chasing? Who am I trying to impress? What would remain if I stopped performing competence for the world? These questions did not give me immediate answers. Important questions rarely do. But they softened something in me. They made me less interested in speed and more interested in honesty. I began to understand that not every form of growth looks like expansion. Sometimes growth is subtraction, the removal of what is unnecessary, the release of identities that once protected us but now restrict us. The courage to disappoint people whose expectations have become too heavy to carry. We often speak of freedom as the ability to do whatever we want. But I have come to think of freedom differently. Freedom is the ability to stop wanting what was never truly ours. It is the quiet relief of no longer needing to prove that we are worthy of being here. This does not mean abandoning ambition. Ambition can be beautiful when it grows from curiosity, purpose, and love. But ambition becomes dangerous when it grows from fear. Fear of being ordinary. Fear of being forgotten. Fear that if we stop achieving, we will disappear. I still work. I still care about doing things well. But my relationship with achievement has changed. I no longer want success that requires me to abandon myself. I no longer admire exhaustion simply because it looks productive. I no longer believe that a full life must always look full from the outside. Some of the richest moments of my life now appear almost meaningless to anyone else. Morning light on the kitchen floor, the first sip of coffee before the day begins, a long conversation with an old friend. The Smell of Rain on Warm Pavement. A book that seems to understand me before I understand myself. These moments do not announce themselves as important. They do not ask to be photographed. They do not improve my status. But they return me to life. There is a kind of intelligence in attention. To notice something fully is to rescue it from disappearance. Perhaps this is why time feels different when we are present. A single minute can become wide and luminous. An entire day can vanish if we move through it unconsciously. We do not experience time only by duration. We experience it by depth. I think often about how much of life is spent waiting for life to begin. We wait until we are more confident, until we have more money, until the timing is better, until someone understands us, until the future becomes safe enough to enter. But the future never arrives as a finished room. It arrives as another present moment, ordinary and imperfect, asking what we will do with it. This is both frightening and liberating. Frightening because there is no perfect moment to begin. Liberating because we do not need one. We can begin in uncertainty. We can begin while afraid. We can begin before we feel ready. The older I get, the more I respect beginnings. Not the dramatic beginnings that other people notice, but the private ones. The day someone chooses to speak honestly, the morning someone decides to try again, the moment a person stops confusing peace with failure, the quiet decision to live more truthfully, even if no one applauds. I have also learned that healing is rarely linear. We like stories where pain becomes wisdom in a clean, satisfying way. But real healing is messier than that. You learn something important, then forget it under stress. You forgive someone, then feel angry again. You become stronger, but not invincible. You move forward, but sometimes you look back. This does not mean you have failed. It means you are human. Maybe wisdom is not the absence of confusion. Maybe wisdom is learning to be gentle with yourself while you are still becoming. For a long time, I thought I had to choose between ambition and peace. Now I wonder if the deeper task is to let them speak to each other, to work with devotion, but not desperation, to dream without turning the dream into a prison, to care deeply, but not measure our worth by every outcome, to build a life that has room not only for achievement, but also for rest, wonder, grief, friendship, and silence. If there is one thing I know now that I did not know when I was younger, it is this. A meaningful life is not necessarily the life that looks most impressive. It is the life you can actually inhabit. The life where your outer choices and inner truth are not strangers. The life where you do not have to constantly leave yourself in order to be accepted. And perhaps peace is not found at the end of becoming. Perhaps peace is what becomes possible when we stop treating ourselves as unfinished projects. We are allowed to grow, of course. We are allowed to change, strive, learn, and begin again. But we are also allowed to belong to this moment before we have improved it. We are allowed to be here, not later, not once everything is solved, not when we finally become the person we imagined. Here, breathing, listening, living, already inside the life we keep searching for. If you understood this story easily, congratulations. Your English is around C2. You can understand complex ideas, emotional nuance, abstract reflection, advanced vocabulary, and natural rhythm. That is an excellent level. But remember, even C2 is not the end. There are always more words to learn, more voices to understand, more books to read, more ways to express thought, humor, emotion, and identity. Language is not a mountain you climb once. It is a landscape you keep exploring. Now you have listened to English from a 1 to C2. Think carefully. Which level felt very easy? Which level felt comfortable? Which level started to feel difficult? If A1 was easy, but A2 was difficult, you may be around A1. If A2 was easy, but B1 was difficult, you may be around A2. If B1 was comfortable, but B2 was challenging, you may be around B1. If B2 was clear, but C1 felt difficult, you may be around B2. If C1 felt natural, but C2 felt heavy, you may be around C1. And if C2 felt clear and natural, your English is very advanced. But please remember this. Your level is not a label. It is only a starting point. Being A1 does not mean you are bad at English. It means you have begun. Being B1 does not mean you are stuck. It means you already understand a lot and are ready to grow. Being C1 or C2 does not mean you are finished. It means you can explore the language more deeply. English learning is not a straight line. Some days you understand everything. Some days you feel lost. Some days you remember a word easily. Some days you forget a word you have seen many times. That is normal. The secret is to keep listening, keep reading, keep speaking, keep making mistakes, keep returning to the language again and again. Because fluency does not come from one perfect day. It comes from many ordinary days. Thank you for watching this English language test from A1 to C2. If this video helped you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and write your level in the comments. Are you A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, or C2? Write your answer below, and remember, your English does not have to be perfect. It only has to keep growing. See you in the next lesson.